but it was published only in Intervirology, a very low journal. It's really a disappointment. I think 2 impact factors for this heroic experiment, which I think is not appreciated much. HEV is a spherical positive RNA virus, and it's a naked virus. And this is very interesting because we are now learning, like hepatitis A, that hepatitis E is also hijacking host membranes. This morning, when there was a talk about vesicles, we also, these exosomes, they serve as the envelope for the naked HEV virus. We learn more now about HEV, and here in Ghent there was a wonderful paper published earlier this year in Ghent by Philip Moleman, who developed this animal model of HEV infection, and the messages, or one of the messages of this paper is that HEV from stool is much more infectious than from blood, which is interesting, because the stool RNA is naked and the blood RNA is enveloped by these membranes from exosomes. And it also shows that the genotype 3, which we have here in our pigs in Europe, that this is, leads to much lower viral loads than HEV genotype 1 infection. And this could be one explanation already why we do not see this fulminant hepatitis cases in pregnant women, which we all learned in med school, but I haven't seen a single pregnant woman in Hanover suffering from fulminant hepatitis. I don't know whether you're aware of any cases, but when you talk to our colleagues from India, the intensive care units are full of women with acute fulminant hepatitis E. It's real. And the difference is probably the genotype, because genotype 3 is replicating at a lower level than genotype 1. And then there was another paper, close to Belgium here, Philip is part of that one, but from Lille, and Laurence published here a very nice paper in gastroenterology on the HEV life cycle. And what I found interesting in that paper is, yes, you can now visualize infectious particles, but there is HEV antigen which is not infectious. So they have, of this open reading frame, the capsid here, you have non-virion associated antigens. The meaning of this is yet unclear. What are the immunoregulatory functions? And this reminds us to other hepatitis viruses, for example hepatitis B, that we have also antigens which may modulate the immune system, which are not infectious. Maybe we have similar things in HEV, which I think is quite interesting. So what is important that HEV has at least 7 different genotypes, and previously we wrote that 4 genotypes may infect humans, but there is a 5th genotype, and this is camel derived. So if you travel to the Middle East, if you drink camel milk, if you eat camel meat, keep an eye on that one. I never did it, but there may be an hepatitis E virus in camels which is transmissible to patients. This is important. The genotype distribution worldwide is, let's say, has been well described. So in India, we have this genotype 1 infections, which may cause this more severe disease in pregnant women. While we're talking here about genotype 3 infections, there have been also a few cases of genotype 4 infections described in southern France. Whether they have been imported, yes or no, is yet unclear. Genotype 4 is present in China. What is important that over time, with age, the seroprevalence rate is increasing. This is data from the US, there are similar data from France, from Germany. But in the long term, HEV seroprevalences are declining, and this is has been underestimated. So overall, the seroprevalence is decreasing in Europe. And this is a paper from Germany, from BASL and this group. However, even within a country, there are huge regional differences. You are maybe aware that in southern France, there's hepatitis E genotype 3 infection very frequent, the Toulouse story of hepatitis E, but even within France, there may be some other hotspots, and you have huge differences, which also is relevant for blood donor screening. But the most important source, obviously, is pork. In Hanover, in northern Germany, if I go to a butcher, the risk that this meat contains infectious HEV virions is between 5 and 50%. And there are similar data from the Netherlands, from the UK, from Denmark. Several studies have investigated commercial pork, commercial pig meat. And Then HEV can not only be detected in pigs, there's a variety of other species which has been found to be infectious for HEV. I learned even cats may become infected with HEV. It's interesting. And then obviously persons who are in contact with these animals are at higher risk of carrying HEV, and there's a higher risk of being seropositive for HEV, and this holds true for butchers, this holds true for farmers, etc. So there's really commercial risk for becoming HEV infected. I don't eat meat, I'm a vegetarian, but I drink milk, and I thought I'm safe. However, there was this paper from China, published last year in Hepatology. They detected HEV genotype 4 in cows, in the meat, but also in milk. Oops. I thought, do we now have a problem here if milk can contain HEV? Our colleagues from the Hanover Veterinary Medical School, they immediately checked 600 fresh blood samples collected in northern Germany, and they were all negative. So some relief for all of you. Yeah? So what is the difference and what is the explanation? In Europe, we rarely have mixed farming, so there are very few farms where we have a cow standing side by side with a pig. And in China, where this first study has been performed, this was really mixed farming, which is rarely the case nowadays in Europe, and therefore there's probably less risk for transmission of one virus to the other species, but the main source is probably still pigs. So overall, as I mentioned, the far majority of infections is really asymptomatic. It may cause, let's say, some fulminant causes, particularly in genotype 1 infections in sub-Saharan Africa, in India, and there are still outbreaks ongoing. For example, in refugee camps in South Sudan, there have been 4 years ago a major outbreak infecting thousands of people, and again, pregnant women dying from HEV infection. So it still causes deaths worldwide, even though for us here it's not the major problem. And then, for us it could be a problem in patients with underlying liver disease. Can it cause acute or chronic liver failure? This is obviously the